I've always been drawn to the parables of Jesus, and I find myself increasingly drawn to them during this collective wilderness experience and this new reality that we find ourselves in. And I think the reason is because the parables, they kind of frustrate one part of our mind that we probably overly rely on. And it engages a different part of our mind that we don't often utilize, and I think we need to utilize, particularly in moments where we're facing adaptive challenges that cannot be solved by the same old solutions that we've come up with in the past. And so I think many of us are in that space, whether it's at work, whether it's at home. I think we're at this place as a church. And so I want to offer this parable of Jesus as an entry point to engaging this moment more creatively and more prayerfully with a certain boldness, but also a humility that I think this moment demands of us. So let me read these words from the Gospel of Luke. Jesus told them a parable. He said, "No one tears a piece from a new garment and sews it on an old garment. Otherwise, the new will be torn, and the piece from the new will not match the old. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the new wine will burst the skins and will be spilled, and the skins will be destroyed. But new wine must be put into fresh wineskins. And no one, after drinking old wine, desires new wine, but says the old is better." Now, Jesus, on the one hand, is pointing out the obvious. The people of his time would have understood, of course, you cannot put new wine in old wineskins because the new wine has to ferment. And since the old wineskins have already been stretched and have already gone through this process of fermentation with another batch of wine, it would literally burst open and all the wine would spill over the floor and it would go to waste. And so in many ways, he's saying the obvious. He's also saying something I think that's really important for this moment. He is acknowledging that old wine is better. Wine that has been aged properly tastes a whole heck of a lot better than new wine. I don't think any of us who ever tasted a glass of wine would argue that point. But here's the problem. When you keep old wine around for too long a period, it starts to get bad. It starts to sour. It no longer is good. And I think that's what's happened in so many places in our lives. The ways that which we've done things are no longer good. They no longer meet this moment. And so part of the challenge here is the old wine has gone bad, and we don't yet have that new wine that has aged and fermented and become the old wine that is better. And so let me offer two reflections that I think can help us have faith in this time of great uncertainty, this time of adaptive challenge. First is, if you want to have old wine, you got to make new wine. If we're going to meet the challenges of this time, that we have to be willing to try something new. And it takes time to figure out things, to get things right. It takes time for things to age properly. It doesn't happen overnight. So we've got to start crushing grapes now. Even though we will not appreciate the goodness of what emerges from all of this until sometime in the future. So that's point number one. Point number two, in order to have good wine, you've got to make a whole heck of a lot of wine right now. Winemakers know this. They experiment all the time. They experiment with different blends, different batches of grapes, different barrels, different aging processes and periods in order to come up with combinations that work. Not everyone does work, and not everything works out, and that's okay. But they try something new anyway. If it works, they build on it, and if it doesn't, it's not a failure. It's a learning opportunity, a learning experience. Let's be honest, none of us have all the answers. We don't know yet how to respond to these challenges, these adaptive challenges that we're facing right now. We know, I think, that something has to change. And I think when we get quiet enough, we know that we have to change. That we somehow must be part of this transformation before us. So I invite you today, but in the days to come, to adopt a posture of listening, a posture of learning, a willingness to try some new things, to crush some grapes, and to give yourself permission to be part of this process of learning as we go. So I invite us to carry that today as our prayer, staying open to the opportunities the Spirit will give us this day.